Hi and welcome back to India on 99.94. I'm your host, Nikesh Ragani, BBC and SEN commentator, alongside Sarah Waris of Wisden. And as we approach the end of the year, Sarah, we've decided to have a little look back at India's men's and women's teams over the course of 2022, and I can tell by the look on your face, it's been a disappointing year, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, 2021 ended with so much joy. There was the Australia series, there was England series, there was the South Africa. They won the first test, and there was just so much of promise. It ended on a bad note with the whole Virat Kohli captaincy mess and everything. But Indian cricket was expected to go further and higher with Rohit Sharma, the five-time IPL champion, being egged on by the BCCI. He could do this and he could do that, and Rahul Dravid there and everything. And do you? It's been a disappointing year. You've been following cricket for obviously much longer than I have. Has there been such a disappointing year as this?
Oh yeah.
Ever on field, off field? It was just just
Sarah,
a mess.
Sarah, listen, the expectations on the India team are so high now. They're expected to win everything.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, when I first started watching Indian cricket, they weren't expected to win anything. Maybe at home in test matches and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's about it. You go anywhere else, tournaments, play away from home. If you win a match on a tour, and we're talking about tours which, like a tour to England, for example, you'd play probably 2 or 3 counties. And this is not that far back. We're talking like the 96 tours, the first one that I remember. And they played against Leicestershire and a couple of other counties on there. If they win one of those matches, that's seen as a big thing. Forget the England Test series. So, because the attitude was that it was quite, I don't know if common knowledge is the right phrase to use, but because we can't prove it and we don't want to sort of say something about those guys which isn't true, but there were rumours and reports that they used to basically see away tours as a chance to go away from home, get pissed, get drunk basically regularly for free on the BCCI, or people who live locally, just take them out, get them drunk, buy them nice dinners. And it was just basically a free holiday. So, and the performances on the pitch weren't great. So that's maybe where the reports came from. But, maybe 1 or 2 of them were doing that, and we don't know. And that was the attitude back then, that you don't expect them to win anything, any kind of important matches away from home, apart from maybe the odd tour match, and that would be a good result. Or if you can win one international match on a long tour, that match will be talked about for quite a while, especially if it was in, England or Australia or South Africa or somewhere like that, or the West Indies at that time. It would be talked about a long time. So they just didn't win anywhere. So, there have been depressing moments, Sarah, in watching Indian cricket over the years.
Thank God I wasn't watching cricket back then.
God knows what was going on off the pitch, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have, press officers and stuff like that, really, in those days. So who knows, right? I was just a kid watching it. I didn't understand all the politics, but from what I hear, there was a hell of a lot of it back. It was probably worse back then, to be honest. People were doing things and no one would ever know about it, so they could get away with more. So, yeah, there have been bad times. But in recent memory, this has been an unsuccessful year, particularly for the men. The women have continued to sort of be there or thereabouts, but they've had a couple of disappointing moments in those, Commonwealth final, for example, and things like that. The World Cup earlier in the year, the 50-over World Cup. So, there have been some disappointing moments, but, they've continued to push and improve, I think, whereas the men have probably taken a couple of steps backwards. And I think that all started with South Africa, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just started with South Africa. Virat Kohli suddenly giving up Test captaincy, and you knew that the main player, the skipper, just was fed up, you could say. The whole captaincy thing that panned out, it would have taken a mental toll on him. The fact that he wasn't in the runs, and it just showed. And he left the Indian team. Even Rohit Sharma was surprised. There was his Instagram post where he expressed shock over Virat Kohli's resignation, and it just left the Indian team without anyone in charge, because Rohit Sharma has his issues with injuries. He's not an established test player, you could say till 2020 Australia tour. Uh, he hadn't done much in the test format, so just 1 year after doing decently in test cricket, he was there at the helm. And uh, I think the issues just started from there. There was a lot of hype about Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma, the new era and everything. And it's very interesting about Rahul Dravid. I know this was in 2020, late 2020, but the fact that Rahul Dravid was appointed the coach without there being a selection process, or the round of interviews or anything of that sort, Gangli just requested him, and he said no a couple of times, and Gangli kept requesting, please become the head coach of the men's team and all that. And finally he relented, and it was called the new era. And just see where the new era has gone. And what's more disappointing is the test fortunes under Kohli. It seemed like, it's a test team here to win. It's a test team which is there to answer back the rivals and everything. And under him, it's the test team largely, of the white ball team, yeah, but the test team, it's just taken a downward spiral. And they won against Bangladesh. They could have lost the second match, we never know. But that's been even more disappointing. Just a lack of fight. Virat Kohli was the captain in South Africa, but he was under a new coach. Dravid was there. And then against England, there was Bumrah there. And they just seem so short of ideas. And that's been even more disappointing for me.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest disappointment, the fact that Virat Kohli is no longer the Test captain, because that was a proper vibe, wasn't it? Virat Kohli leading the side in whites, jumping around, the aggression that everybody had. That, do you remember the win at Lords in 2021? I mean, that, to bowl England out in that short space of time, to win that test match, and that was all, it all came from Kohli. That energy came from Kohli. He said, we're going to win this match. We're not out for a draw, or, we're going to win this.
They were in the Lord's long room, I think you call it, where Bumrah and Shami had that partnership. Then the whole team came down and applauded them, and they were like, we have to show them that we are not tourists here. We are here to win. And, just the whole atmosphere only a Virat Kohli can bring. So white ball cricket, okay, you could say they had Rohit Sharma, 5-time champion. They wanted to give him a go. All that is understandable. But the way it panned out and the way it mentally affected Virat Kohli, to the level that he had to quit Test captaincy, and he's so passionate about about Test cricket. I don't know a player in the current era who's as passionate. There are people who are vocal about it, but someone who plays all three formats and who still is so passionate about Test cricket. So that was a huge miss. And India still, the fact that Rohit Sharma is not there overseas and KL Rahul is just out of sorts. Bumrah, he has his injury issues. Rishabh Pant, people are saying you don't want to make him the Test captain. The fact that there is no successor to Virat Kohli, proper successor to Virat Kohli is, that's the sad part for me.
It's because it wasn't planned for, and he's not so old that he's going to step down from playing anytime soon. So there was just the assumption from both him and probably from management at the time that it's his job for a few years still. So we don't need to necessarily groom somebody alongside him at this stage. If he misses the odd test match, Rohit can step in, or somebody can step in. But the job is his for now. And then it all just came crashing down, didn't it? And he stepped down from Test captaincy, but that's because he was treated like shit by the board, basically, with the white ball captaincy and the way that panned out with the ODIs and stuff. So you can understand it. He just didn't need it at that point in his life. But I think that's going to burn me for years to come, because you see what the side could have become. And I don't think it will become that now under different leadership. So, yeah, it kind of all started with that, didn't it? That series loss, which should never have been a series loss. I mean, you could see the pressure getting to him and the rest of the players as well, but in particular him as a leader and what it was doing to him, all this politics with the BCCI and the selection committee and all that, and sort of shouting down the stump mic, accusing the host broadcasters of controlling the DRS system, which of course they don't control the system. They control the pictures, but they don't control the system itself. So, you know, it was all kicking off really, and it wasn't a nice way to really start off the year for India. It felt like it was a defeat in South Africa, which India are used to, but it felt like the opportunity now for this Indian side to be the first to win in South Africa. They'd done it in Australia twice. They were 2-1 up in England. Just go and do it in South Africa. And Virat Kohli then probably could have stepped down from the captaincy with his head held high as the greatest captain probably in the history of modern Test cricket. When you look at the last 20, 30 years, you couldn't probably name a captain that's done all those things, that's gone. And can you name an Aussie captain that's won in England, in India, and in South Africa? No. You know, it's the same sort of thing. Can you name an England captain that's gone and won the Ashes in Australia, beaten India in India, and beaten South Africa in South? No. So if you do it the other way around, nobody has done that. I mean, it's unthinkable, really. But Kohli was the man who was so close to it, and it just didn't quite happen, did it?
Yeah, and just the incident you spoke about, the DRS incident where he was shouting at the stump mic, it just looked forced, it looked fake. And he did later say that a lot of the times his energy was made up, it was fake, but he wasn't feeling it. He said that in the interview after the break. He came back with Star, he had the 1 hour interview, and he did say that, and that was the moment you realized he's not feeling it, like he's not enjoying it as much, like because of all the things that had happened less than a month ago with the BCCI removing him, giving an hour's notice to remove him from white ball captaincy and all that. And yeah, that was just the tipping point for him. I am glad the year ended, at least in white ball cricket. You know, it ended on a high for him with the 100, and T20Is. But it's just sad that as a Indian cricket will never get to see, you're right, the heights which they could have achieved under Kohli, because it was all Kohli's vision. He and Ravi Shastri, since they took over in 2014, on the Australia series, they played that match against Adelaide, where they just fell short of 350 or something they were chasing. They just fell short, and that was the vision. And Ravi Shastri kept saying, we'll become the best test team, and everyone was just laughing at him, because India best test team overseas, yeah, like you had said, it was no one expected that. And then to have got India close, I wrote an article last year after Virat Kohli stepped down saying Test cricket owes you Virat Kohli, you know, just for bringing the passion back, for forcing fans to watch Test cricket. This podcast is soon becoming a tribute to Virat Kohli, the Test captain, instead of a look back. But yeah, that's just his impact. And yeah, so it's good we move on, because there's just so much to talk about Virat Kohli, the Test captain, and unfortunate. And yeah.
Well, that's one for the future, isn't it? Maybe we could, you know, see if people want to hear more about Kohli, the skipper. Right, we have gone on quite long about Virat Kohli, so we'll take another short break here, and we promise we have got plenty of other things to talk about as well.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app, or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
Right, so kicked off with the South Africa tour, Virat Kohli and the captaincy and that whole debacle. I mean, look, some of the highs, we were talking just before we started recording. I said, I've got a list of a few of the good moments. And you were like, have there been any good moments? I mean, there's been a few. I mean, let me list what I've got down here. I've got India's men and women winning white ball series in England in the summer. And I think that was a brilliant achievement. It was India's sort of new vision at that time, wasn't it? To be attacking, to almost take Bazball back to England, albeit in a different format. But do you know what I mean? It was that intent which they were showing with the bat. It was the aggression they were showing with the ball. It was Rohit Sharma. It was all very exciting. And then it crashed down. But that was good in terms of the men. The women, obviously, Dipti Sharma at Lords and, all that controversy which it caused in England, but that takes nothing away from how well India played in that series. And England were missing a couple of players, but so what? You got to beat what's in front of you, and it was still a strong England side. So I've got those two as highlights. The women reaching the Commonwealth Games final, I thought that was a brilliant achievement. Again, they beat England, the hosts, in the semi-final as well, and fell just short against Australia, as they always do. They always fall just short against Australia in these crunch matches. Always make a game of it, though, which is great. I've got Virat Kohli's innings versus Pakistan. Can't keep that man out of the headlines as well. I mean, that's probably top of the list for most people. MCG, World Cup. You're going to lose. It looks like you're going to lose up until probably the 18th, 19th over. And then all of a sudden, those sixes off Haris Rauf, the over from Nawaz at the end, which we knew we had up our sleeves, and famous victory in front of a sellout crowd there. And then I've got the second T20I against Australia for the women. That win, the tie, just what the series did really for women's cricket in India. The crowds, the atmosphere, the great performances that we saw from India despite the series loss. It was a bit closer than 4-1 would suggest. But that second match and Smriti's innings, and it was just all brilliant. Have you got any others on your list?
These are the high. The women's team won the Asia Cup also, so that's another high for me. And the other high which I have is the BCCI announcing the women's IPL. That's a high for me. It's not in motion. Just the fact that they took it seriously to just announce it. We are 2-3 months away from the IPL, women's IPL, and there's no update on the teams. There's no update on the squads or anything while the men's IPL auction is done. So that's another topic. But just the fact that they've announced this is a big high for me. And the other highs, I think, were just the individual performances. There were a few individuals who did well, like obviously the emergence of Arshdeep Singh. If you look at numbers, his economy is on the high side, around 9. So you'll be like, okay, what's the hype about? But if you've looked at him closely, that spell against Pakistan in the T20 World Cup, it just set things in motion for that match. Unfortunately, not the tournament, but yeah. So Arshdeep Singh is a huge high for me. The form of Shreyas Iyer, another big positive in the fact that he cemented his place in the middle order. He has his issues against the short ball and all, but he's managed to do well against that. He did well in New Zealand, in different conditions, in West Indies. So it's not that he's allowed those shortcomings to affect him. He's managed to play around that. And even Gill, you can say, the white ball player, the ODI opener, he's doing so well. And Shikhar Dhawan's place is in question. He might still play. You never know if this management continues. But Gill and Surya Kumar Yadav. Surya Kumar, we saw glimpses of what he could do in 2020 also. But the fact that he managed to do that with such consistency is another high. So I think these are the 2 or 3 individual performers who are on top of my positives list. Of course, Mandana also,
of course.
Yeah. Mandana, Renuka Singh Thakur, the emergence of... You knew what Mandana is capable of doing, but the emergence of Renuka Singh Thakur, because you needed a fast bowler after Jhulan Goswami. So just how well she's been able to do across conditions and different teams. So that's a big high for me as well.
Richa Ghosh as well, I think, coming into that middle order as the
Richa
keeper and the
Ghosh,
enforcer in that middle order towards the back end of an innings. I mean, by the sounds of it, I mean, we've just listed all these positives. Sounds like India have had a great year, but back to reality. I mean, we talked about the test series against South Africa away, Kohli losing the captaincy, of course, losing that one-off test to England as well. I mean, England had a great summer at home. They won 6 out of 7 test matches against New Zealand, against India, and against South Africa they played. And it was the emergence of Bazball, and I think India were just caught a little bit cold, coming into a one-off test, didn't really have any build-up to it. It's a difficult situation, isn't it? Whether you consider it as part of the 5-match series or not. Officially it was, but, we're saying it's not. Whatever it is, it's still a one-off test. You're coming in the middle of the English summer. They've just played a series against New Zealand in which they've, battered them, playing Bazball. And India come into this situation and probably should have won. I mean, they were in better positions, but it was really just that final innings from England which took it away. That to me was, almost as big a disappointment as like crashing out of the Asia Cup early. I would have rather won that test match.
Yeah, and it's very strange that England at this time a year ago, they were in all sorts of trouble with their test team, and overall they were struggling, they were getting beaten. There were all these records that they've not won a test match in these many matches or whatever it was. And then suddenly Brendan McCullum comes and then just everything changes. While India, on the other hand, there were this team that, wow, the team to beat, and is there a better team than India? And it just takes 12 months to turn things around. And right now, India is where England were last year. And that's very unfortunate. Like, I can never get over how the test fortunes for India have fallen this year. White ball cricket, you still think that maybe with a new captain coming in, with a new management coming in, things can change. Things should change, hopefully, but again, not going back to Virat Kohli, the test captain point, but the test captaincy lows were the biggest lows for me. And also the leaks. We have to talk about the leaks, the whole mess which the BCCI, like on field, we've spoken about the Asia Cup. There was the Asia Cup early ouster. Then there was the T20 World Cup where they did reach the semi-finals, and people are like, okay, that's not bad. Like, you can't expect them to win. But
if you look at the way they played,
that they hardly just put up a fight, and it was luck going their way. They could have lost to Bangladesh if not for rain and just so many other factors and all. And while that was there, off field, it was just a mess. Like, if you have one word for Indian cricket in 2022, it would be messy. That's the word for me. There were these leaks, and even today, it's not stopped. There are these, I don't know if you've seen them, but the ads for India versus Sri Lanka T20I series, Star Sports is running the ads with the campaign under Hardik Pandya's Raj, which means, under India began their campaign under Hardik Pandya's Raj, and which means under his captaincy. And there's no update from the BCCI. Is he the captain? Is he not the captain? There are reports that BCCI is thinking of removing Rohit Sharma, and it's just these whole reports and these leaks and just everything which caused the mess. And yeah, it was just a very terrible place for Indian cricket to be in. There were players skipping series. There were issues with injuries. The NCA was under the scanner. They passed Bumrah's fitness, and then they passed Umesh Yadav's fitness, and then later on both of them got injured. Even Deepak Chahar, and I think Dravid went on to say that, the NCA, we have to look at what the NCA is doing, because people who are coming in are not 100%. So there were all these other issues with selections, like what is up with the selectors. India currently don't have selectors, but just
someone's
what is wrong
it.
with the selectors? Yeah, it's Chetan Sharma's, it's the old selection committee who is in charge yet, which is also bizarre to me because they've been sacked more than a month ago and they're still in charge of it. They're still selecting series. BCCI has no urgency to to pick a new selection committee. So why were they sacked in the first place? And there's just no clear answer for the future. There's no clear answer for, okay, this is the game plan for 2023. It's the World Cup year. It's the World Cup at home. And you don't even know who your skipper is going to be. You don't even know, like, you can't even make a full probable list of 25 players. Will Ishan Kishan be there? Will Gill be there? Will Dhawan be there? Like, what is the squad? So it's just like a huge mess right now, and it just angers me just talking about it here.
Yeah, I can tell. You need some more time?
Yeah. I could go on, but yeah, over to you.
Yeah, well, let's just say it's been a bit Lionel Messi. Messi's
Yeah.
been the word of the year, hasn't it? With football, cricket, whatever.
Yeah.
Right, we'll take another short break and we'll be back on the other side just with a brief look ahead to what the next 12 months might bring.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So, you know, many Indian cricket fans will be putting 2022 way back in the memory bank. Looking ahead to 2023, there's lots on offer once again. A home World Cup, like we mentioned, 50 over World Cup. World Test Championship, potentially. I mean, there's a Border Gavaskar Trophy. Need to win 3 out of those 4 tests to get into the final. And then, who knows, it might be India's time.
Women's
So
T20
all those...
World Cup.
Sorry?
Women's T20 World Cup in Feb.
Absolutely, yeah, just before the Border Gavaskar as well. That's in South Africa. Can India's women go one better? Because they've been getting to finals, they've been getting to semis. You know, they've been there, and it's always the Aussies usually. I mean, it was in 2017, it was England, but they beat the Aussies in that semi-final, which was one of those rare occasions where they turn up against Australia in the biggest matches. But the Australian juggernaut marches on, so, you know, can they go one step further? I mean, let's talk about that. What would be success from your point of view for the women's team? Do they have to win a trophy next year?
I hope they do, because a trophy would change so much. It would just show the BCCI first and foremost that, okay, our women's team is capable and women's cricket is worth investing in. And that is why winning a trophy is important, which is why also I have been in favor of pushing Shafali and Richa Ghosh in the under-19 women's team, because the World Cup is in January. Because a trophy can change so much. And there's also the women's IPL. So I hope that's a success also. First of all, I hope the BCCI plan it out properly. They give the games to bigger venues, at least in the first and second seasons, because that will get in the crowds. You don't want to watch the first women's IPL without any crowds in the smaller venues, like any of the smaller venues. So I hope the BCCI, they schedule it properly. They just have a good format in place. They are not stupid and keep the matches at 3 p.m. on weekdays and all that, which you never know they will do, saying that no one watches prime time and all that. They'll have the excuses ready. So that's my one wish list. And as far as the men's, just hope it's a quiet off-field year for them. That's all I want. I'm not asking for much. Am I asking for much? I think I'm asking for much, but just a quieter off-field year for them.
Yeah, and success on it for the men's team, right? I'm going to give you 2 options. Look, there's a lot of cricket next year, but Border Gavaskar's one thing. But, based on that, then they could or could not get into the World Test Championship final. And then there's the 50 over World Cup later in the year. If I was to give you a choice of one of those. So let's do the 2 scenarios as well. It's not like India will get to both finals and they'll win one and lose one. Let's say they win the World Test Championship and they get humiliated at home in the World Cup. they get knocked out, in the group stage or whatever, they don't make the final. Even the semis isn't great when you that much expectation on you. So they have a really poor 50 over World Cup, but they win the Test Championship after all those problems in Test cricket in 22. Or they might get to the Test Championship final. It might be another heartbreaking defeat in the final to Australia or whoever, and then they turn up to the home World Cup and they win that. Would that be more impressive? Would you prefer that? Which one? If I was to offer you one now, World Cup or World Test Championship, what would you take?
All setting me up for jinxing the team. It'll be on you, whatever the
Just
result
whatever you.
goes. It'll
No,
be
it's
on
not
you.
what's going to happen. It's what you would
It's
like.
going to be any day the World Cup, the ODI World Cup. Like for me, if you have to place the 3 tournaments, if you have to first will be the ODI World Cup, the second is T20 World Cup, and third probably the World Test Championship, because there's less history involved there. You get a chance every 2 years. Obviously, you get a chance in the other formats also, but it's just that the World Cup, everything is building towards that World Cup, that ODI World Cup after every 4 years. Even the T20 World Cup happens once. It happened in 2021 and then 2022. So it wasn't that hype. The ODI World Cup, you're looking forward to it. You're making your team for it. There are crowds coming in. It's a full-on competition. While the World Test Championship, it's like one series is here, one series is there. There are months, years almost, months before a team plays a test match. So it's not a continuation of an event. There'll be fans coming in for India, supporting them, and it's going to be a whole carnival. So obviously, there's no doubt in my mind that it has to be the 2023 World Cup. Same question to you. Which would you prefer?
I'm going to go World Test Championship. I'm going to be awkward because, look, the World Cup is brilliant. And, as a kid growing up, you sort of hear stories about India winning the 83 World Cup. And when's it going to happen in my generation? When am I going to see India win the World Cup? And it was the only World Cup back then. There was no T20 cricket. There was no official Test champions or mace or anything given out. So it was all about that. And you want them to be world champions. And it happened in 2011. It happened at home. Maybe if the 2023 World Cup was outside of India, then I would have maybe held it in higher regard. I think having it at home, the fact they've already done it at home in my lifetime, okay, it was a few years back, but, they've won the Champions Trophy as well in 2013. They've done well enough in ICC white ball tournaments in my life. I've seen them win all 3. I've seen Virat Kohli get however many Test maces at the end of those cycles that they had previously before they had an official final, and MS Dhoni held the mace, and so we have seen that. But this is actually a final. It's an ICC final. It's an ICC trophy. I love Test cricket, and also I think what it would mean to this Indian side and just Indian cricket fans, really, more than anything, is it's been a terrible year, like we've just been talking about in Test cricket, losing to South Africa, losing in England when the series, we were cruising in that series, and then you come back for that final Test, you lose it. They just look at a side that's completely shot and doesn't have an identity anymore. It could have lost that second Test to Bangladesh. The batting looks terrible. Everything's going wrong with the Test side. For them to scrape into the final like it will be a scrape, because Australia at home, you'd say, all right, you'd expect India to win that, but 3-0 or 3-1, really? To win 3 Test matches against this Australian side, who's playing really well at the moment, albeit in home conditions, it's not going to be easy.
They won against Pakistan, though, last year. They won the series against Pakistan.
In Pakistan, although it's a little bit different to playing India in India, because India haven't lost in India for 633 years or whatever it is. So no one wins in India. Really. Winning a Test match in India, winning one match in India is something. Winning a series in India is completely different. So you wouldn't expect them to do that, but for India to win 3 out of those 4, that's going to be tough. And then to get to the final, then to go to England and win it in England, that would mean a lot. Especially for people like me, Indians living in in the UK. That would mean a lot. And it's Test cricket. You want to be champions of Test cricket. You want to be champions at a time when England are going on about Bazball this, Bazball that. I know it's only been a year of Bazball and they were already pretty much out of the World Test Championship by the time he came in. But you would then be world champions of a format which they think they're the best at. But you could always just show them the trophy, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could just show them the trophy.
I can't wait for England. I can't wait for England to come to India and hopefully have their baseball talks just squashed. I can't wait for that. Yeah.
2024. That's when it is. January 2024 when they arrive. So not long to go now, just over 12 months as we record this. And England will be in India once again. That will be an interesting series as well. But long time to still go. Lots of cricket to be played before that. Either way, look, let's just hope for more success for the women, for the men. And let's just try and put 2022 to the backs of our minds for now. I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening as well throughout this year. I sort of started at the back end of the summer, the summer as I look at it, August. And then we sort of had a good few months of lots of interesting cricket going on, lots of disappointments for India, Asia Cup, World Cup.
Did we jinx the team?
Maybe we did.
Did we jinx the team?
They were
soon as we came on, it
playing
was
well before that anyway.
They just went downhill.
There was only really the England series, which was a big success before that anyway. So it's just not been a great year. But thanks to everyone who's listened, who's subscribed, who's watched on YouTube, who's downloaded via their podcast feed, whichever way you consume our content. We thank you very much. We hope you continue to join us on this journey, and we wish you a happy and prosperous new year. Right, Sarah?
Yep. Happy New Year. Hope Indian cricket has a lot of success this year.
Absolutely.
That's my one wish, yeah.
There we go. Fingers crossed, toes crossed, prayers, everything, whatever it might take. So thank you very much once again, and we'll see you in the new year.